Hi, a very warm welcome back for the third and final part of this trilogy. Buying your first film SLR camera, manual focus. Maybe you've bought your camera by now. Maybe you haven't. But in this third part, we're going to talk about this baby. We've done the camera, now the lens. The Nikon 50mm 1.8 AIS lens, otherwise known as the pancake lens, for obvious reasons. Maybe just take that off to show you more clearly just how compact this little baby is. A brilliant lens. Absolutely beautiful. And there are variations on a theme of this lens. As I say, it's 50mm, so it's a very versatile lens. If you're starting out, you're buying your first camera, I think a 50mm lens is an excellent way to go, because it's going to teach you. It's going to teach you about depth of field, aperture, open apertures, closed apertures, far more than a wide angle lens. A wide angle lens, you've got to be very close up to the subject and open up all the way to get any kind of depth of field. It's just very difficult to get a shallow depth of field with a wide angle lens. You'll see it and learn far quicker with a 50mm lens than a wide lens. Plus the fact that 50mm lenses, hey, Cartier-Bresson used them for all the work that he did over years and years and years and years and years. Not a bad way to go. But more specifically to this vlog, a great way to learn as well. What optics do. How far away, how close you need to be to, at what f-stop, if we call a middle f-stop as f5.6 or f8 or something like that, what you'll get at that distance compared to f16 or f22, or in this case 1.8 wide open. So your aperture has got a huge wide hole and you're going to be letting in a lot of light, but also maximizing your shallow depth of field. Things beyond what you want to focus on are, in other words, out of focus, and things in front of what you want to focus on, between the camera and the subject, will be out of focus. And to what degree? The longer the lens, the more shallow the depth of field. The wider the lens, the more is going to be in focus, in front of the subject and beyond the subject. Those are the basic rules, the basic physics to any lens, in essence. This has 5 elements. Now there's a 5 or 6. I've forgotten. Let me come back to that in a second. But basically, I wanted to talk about the different kinds that you can get. Now that's an f3. This is an FE camera. This has got a filter on, a UV filter, and I'll tell you why in a second, but they basically look exactly the same, but they're not. The Japanese made their own for themselves, for the Japanese market, because they like small. They realized that it was a much sought after lens and started to make them for the American market and the European market. Now, these two say the exact same thing on the front. Nikon 1.8 and the serial number, 50mm. But there are distinguishing things even on these two lenses that look remarkably the same. Number one, and I think that probably the easiest way to tell, is that the Japanese lens is the best one. That's the one you want to get if you can. They're the most expensive, but they are, you know, this camera cost £50. This lens cost about £150, and that's fine. You know, the glass is what does the magic. So the distinguishing marks, if you can see, are the 2 on the serial number. Must start with a 2. This one starts with a 4. I'm going to take this UV filter off just so you can see. Starts with a 4. So it is not the Japanese one. I think it's the European one. The other way you can tell is the focusing distance. This goes down to 0.45 of a meter, or 1.5 feet. This one, I can't remember actually what it goes to. It's 0.6 of a meter, or 2 feet. And that's another way you can tell. So in other words, don't pay top dollar or top pound for, you know, don't pay the price for the best one when you're actually getting a cheaper one. The other thing is that there's more plastic in the cheaper one. This is an all metal construction apart from the rubber focusing ring. On this lens, it feels like plastic. This focusing ring feels like plastic. Looks exactly the same or very similar unless you look closely. That is all rubber, but the rest of the lens is metal, and so there is a slight difference in weight. This being the better one, being the heavier of the two. The coating on the lens. The better one has 2 coatings. The cheaper one has one coating. There is an E-series lens which looks very similar to these. That's the third one, which I don't have, and that's I think the cheapest of all three, price wise. Now it's a kind of a weird thing. Apart from the coatings, which does affect the resolution of your image to some extent, the actual optics are supposed to be exactly the same. And this is basically the sharpest 50mm lens Nikon makes. It's not the fastest. You can get 1.2, 1.4 aperture lenses, but it's the sharpest, and a brilliant piece of glass. And for me, it's just also brilliant because it's so compact and just makes, I mean, just look at that. Look at how compact that whole thing is. You know, I love that. It just, you can use it as a point and shoot. You can shoot it manually. You can do whatever you want with this camera, but the whole thing just makes for a really lovely thing in the hand. And if you can, you know, I would go with the Japanese version, beginning with the 2 series lens, because it's just a beautiful. I mean, to turn this focusing ring is really easy. It's not loose, but it feels a lot looser than this. This is just absolutely, you know, you're not going to be able to appreciate it unless you feel it, but it is just the right kind of torque. So you set focus and it's bang, perfect, boom. Whereas this one, you can set focus and then with the slightest knock by accident, you can just knock it out. Which you're not going to be doing it with that. It's just in there, you've got the focus and you're great to take the photograph. It's exactly the right kind of torque that you want. You know, it's Leica-esque. It really is. And it's just really sharp. Beautiful lens. This, as I say, this is probably round about today, probably round about the 150, 160, 170 for in good condition. You want to make sure that it doesn't have any haze or fungus or anything like that. If you hold it up to the light, open aperture, you can pretty much see. You know, don't be worried about a few specks of dust. That's not going to affect anything. And lenses this kind of age will have a bit of dust in it. Yeah, you can't avoid it, but it doesn't affect the image. The next one down, which is this one, you know, great lens. You know, I don't actually know the prices. I'm guessing they're around about the sort of 70, 80 pound mark, something along those lines, depending on condition. And then the E series, cheaper still, probably, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't buy one of those. Well, look, that's unfair because the optics are really good, but it's just a lot more plasticky. I don't know what the prices are. I mean, they're probably around about, I don't know, 20, 30 pounds off the top of my head. That's a bit of a guess. I mean, you know, anyway, pays your money, takes choice, but that's a really good way to go. A really, really good way to go. If you can afford the Japanese one, fantastic. I put the UV one on the cheaper one because it's only got a single coating, and that just blocks out a bit more ultraviolet, and apart from protects the front element of the lens, it just gives, I think, probably a little bit more resolution. But that's the thinking behind it anyway. Whether it does, whether it doesn't, whatever. But you've got your camera, you've got your lens, just amazing. You know, you're off and running, you're up and running, you're filling your boots now. You're ready to go, and that is it. All you need, there's a roll of film, and you can go and have an awful lot of fun, And for this part B of this vlog is what you can achieve with a simple camera. Literally, I'm not exaggerating here. I'm going to bring some images up here. Not to say, aren't these great images? No, I'm not. Not at all. These are just 35-year-old images. Just simple, using light, using available light, using natural light. This one's what, 1997, so a bit, you know, what's that, 24 years old. No, just an SLR camera and a lens. No flash, no nothing. These are all full frame, so no cheating, just a little bit of post, you know, either lightning or whatever, getting the values right, the blacks right. They're practically all, I think, pushed. Let's have a little look. Yep, this one was pushed. This is T-Max, 1997, London. I think, I can't remember the name of the place in London. I took that. This next one, again, full frame. What's this, 1987? What's that, 34 years old. Full frame, again, this is definitely pushed. Shot on HP5. This next one, 1991. Just simple. Again, that would have been pushed. That's T-Max. Yeah, I used a bit of T-Max back in the early days. I hardly ever use it now, but I quite like it. It gives you a slightly finer grain, but the way I develop it gives me a fine grain anyway, even if I've pushed it to 1600. Again, I mean, these are portraits and street, but I'm always looking for the uncontrived. A little technique that I used to use a lot. I mean, I still do to a degree, but not as much. Not because it, I don't like it, but because I just don't take the number of photos that I used to. I used to literally, get dressed, and I used to, I didn't put the camera down until, unless I was eating or whatever, until I went to bed at night. And if I was hanging out with a group of people, it was like, oh, Matt with his camera. But after a while, they just forget that you've got the camera. And you get some amazing shots that way. For me, it's not so much about the expression. It's almost like a silence within somebody. Like, I'm not there. Like, they're not conscious of the camera. That's, all these portraits, that's what I'm achieving with this technique. It's not a technique in lighting or anything like that. It's simply people are blasé to you because you've got the camera with you all the time. If you suddenly bring out a camera, people become very self-conscious, understandably. If you've got it with you all the time, you forget about the fact that you've even got one and don't look up when they hear a click. It's kind of boring, and not boring, they're just not bothered by it. They're thinking about other things. Their mind is elsewhere. And that's kind of what I'm always trying to achieve. These are street photographs, all full frame, just to give you that idea. This is what, 1989, all shot so in and around when these cameras came out, which is, that's why I've pulled out these early shots. These are really just some of my earliest shots. Not all of them, but the vast majority of them. Certainly this one is, the one before, the old woman. So I'm just trying to read, 1989, and I haven't actually put what film that is. Did I put it on this one? Because I think that's the same roll of film. No, I haven't. It'll be HP5 or T-Max or something like that. Again, this next one, I'm on the other side of the room for this one. It's just, I love this technique of just getting people unaware, not jumping out at them, not startling them, not having them look at the camera directly. That normally ruins the shot for me. Not always, if it's a portrait, but again, I think on balance I'd rather it not, but definitely if it's a street photograph I'd rather them not. It's, what's this, 1993, Birmingham, Colmore Row. And so, it's woman feeding pigeons, I think that comes from a French film that I saw. Just, I don't know, bizarre in the sense that as if pigeons need feeding, millions of them everywhere. And but anyway, and it's just, I thought it was a bizarre thing. And again, that's what I'm normally trying to do, just ask a question or whatever. This is I think this is just a little bit of light spilling through a curtain, nothing more than that. Available light or natural light, no flash used here, nothing else used other than a little camera, a little SLR camera, a lovely piece of glass, and just examples of what you can get, what you can do with these cameras. You can do landscapes, portrait. They're just so versatile because they're so small, so easy to carry around with you. This is 1988, just a reflection, a piece of glass on a train. This is HP5, and again, maybe you can see the grain structure. See, that's not massive grain, and that's just down to what chemical you use. It's definitely pushed, taken with the F3, Nikon F3. This one again, 1986, this one. Don't know why I'm reading that out to you. This is Tri-X. Again, you know. Great piece of glass, 50mm lens. Simple as you like. It just allows you to kind of put a rectangle around something. You know, you meet it for the light. You know, some of these are taken, probably this one. This is Ilford FP4. Available light. I've probably shot this at a 15th or a 30th of a second. Maybe even less. It doesn't matter. We're not looking for perfection when it comes to 35mm when you're shooting. You know, if it's low light, people will automatically reach for a flash gun. No. Just learn to use the light. If it's a slow shutter speed, just use your face to control the camera a little bit. If there's a tiny bit of movement, who cares? It just adds to that feeling of 35mm. That look that isn't, you know, completely and utterly organized and constructed, and you know, we're not taking studio advertising shots here. We're just getting this flavor of something, this, you know, this composition, understanding what light is there and what can be done in what light. You know, 50mm lens, so there's you know, most photos out of focus, but that's cool. It doesn't matter. It's, you know, I'm not having kittens over that. It's just fine. I'll give you a bit of a story. When I was in London, assisting, you know, world famous photographers, literally, they still are world famous, highest paid photographers in the world, and I was scribbling down all these lighting techniques, and, you know, in a little notebook on the tube on the way home, if I even managed to get home, because quite often I wouldn't sleep in the studio overnight, or test myself. These photographers, when they weren't shooting a commission for Vogue or whatever it was, some famous person, you know, celebrity or whatever, they would come in and test out of hours. And this one guy, you know, I remember this vividly, and he came in and he had his own assistant, and the assistant set up in a studio and 5.4, bought a model with him, the lights and what have you, and he was obviously trying to create this look. But what would happen was that the photographer himself was just kind of drinking coffee and chilling, and the assistant would come in with a Polaroid and show him the Polaroid, and then the photographer would say, yeah, just pull that left light back a bit and raise the one on the right, and blah blah, away you go, take another Polaroid, 20 Polaroids later kind of thing, and they take the shot. But so the photographer wasn't even behind the camera, he was just chilling, drinking coffee and what have you. And invariably what would happen, they would talk about photography and photographers, and 99.9% of the time it was about street photographers, Cartier-Bressons, Brassai, all these kind of photographers. And after a while I kind of thought, you know, is this a trend? Is it kind of cool to talk about street photographers? Or, you know, why aren't they talking about fashion photographers, you know, other photographers, competitors or whatever? No, street photographers all the time. It was clear these were the people that they held in very high regard. And I didn't quite understand it at the time, but what I began to realise after a while was that, you know, they were well aware that they were taking photographs in a studio in a very controlled situation, very controlled light. You know, the fashion back then was grunge, Kate Moss and all that kind of stuff. And it was all completely and utterly contrived. And yet these street photographers did the complete antithesis of what they were doing. They were conjuring an image out of thin air almost, in a split second, with no control other than their camera and a shutter speed and a lens. That was it. And they were producing moments of magic in this way, without any control whatsoever other than their own wits and their own ability. No lighting, no flash, no anything. And that's why they, you know, considered them to be these almost like godlike figures. The complete opposite. And I remember when I was at college also, you know, I was interested in fashion as well, or studio lighting and what have you. And I would look at the Irving Penns of the world, and I would work out the lighting of these people, or try and work out the lighting, what they'd use. Was it, you know, was it flash? Was it a daylight studio? Were there reflectors in there, poly reflectors, or, you know, how were they achieving this kind of lighting effect? And the funny thing was, you know, even to this day, I can remember the techniques they employed more than the images. The images themselves were utterly amazing. You know, you could, you know, just so beautifully and incredibly lit. You could kind of, you know, if it wasn't going in vogue, you could literally put a frame around it and hang it in any international gallery in the world. They were that good. And yet, I hardly remember any of those images. They would be amazing in my mind for about 20 seconds. And yet the images that completely resonated with me, that have never left me, I don't have to remember them. They're with me all the time. Were the street photographs, the Cartier-Bressons of the world, the you know, these amazing, you know, Kudelka images, because it was real life, nothing contrived. It was real, and you could tell it was real stuff. Nothing artificial, nothing, you know, not a celebrity, not flash, not HMI lighting, not, you know, how clever that is and what a lovely effect that is. No, it was real life being conjured from nothing, almost, from life itself. Those are the images that have always resonated with me. Always. Maybe that's just me, but I think that's another reason why these fashion photographers loved street photographers, because there was nothing artificial about it. It was real, utterly real. This was a couple of photographs I took. I mean, this looks more like controlled light, but it's not. It's, if I remember rightly, I mean, it was taken in 1988, but I think there was a couple of lamps on a stick, on a vertical, you know, metal pole, and yeah, just taken in Frankfurt. This next one, this one was taken in Holland, and again you see the effect. You know, I am next to her, but I'm not getting the reaction of, oh, are you taking my photograph? No, because they're just used to me having a camera in my hand all the time. They're probably sick and tired of me taking photos. You know, I'm not taking them all the time or anything. I'm just lifting the camera as and when. And you just get this expression, this you know, fly on the wall, I suppose, kind of thing going on. This is Holland as well, different time, completely different time, but you know, round about 1987-ish, thereabouts, but just a completely different situation, months apart, sort of thing. Again, this just wanted him coming out or coming into the lens almost. Street, portrait, you name it, landscape, probably. I don't know, there are about 30 here, I think. I don't know if I've got any landscape, but they're all sorts. You can do pretty much anything with these cameras. But that thing of, not there, not looking like it's a setup. I mean, I am there, but there's no setup involved. Is that a portrait? I don't know. It is a portrait to me, but I've not said sit there and read a book. It's just what she's doing, and I've taken the photograph, and that's why for me it's real, and I love the image, and it just has everything that I love. And again, it's having a camera to hand, just that 35mm, boom, split second. It's in your hand, there, shoot. This one is Italy again. Previous one was in Milan. This is also Milan. Yeah, just doing my thing. 1988. This is bit more information on this one. It's Milan via Bologna, Parco della Resistenza. Anyway, 1988. HP5, and the rest is history. This is Venice, just portrait. Venice again, Grand Canal, Bob, I told you, I experimented this. So, I'm not using a tripod for this, even though it's a long exposure. I'm literally just resting it on the bridge and putting it in bulb and taking a long, I don't know how long that is, probably 2 or 3 minutes, something like that, maybe. But it's all about, for me, it's all about just experimentation. It's all about not even experimenting, just going with what seems interesting. Having a camera on you the whole time, not trying to take photographs as per how somebody else might, just going with my own intuition, my own feelings towards something. And they're sort of glorified snaps in a way, literally, just not even maybe glorified, just snaps. No other apparatus, nothing else there. Again, you can see the shadows here, just it's backlit. This is Morocco. Kid flick-flacks across the photo, That's all it is. And that's, it's not, hey, great, these are just very, very early photographs, and this is what you can do with a simple, very, very simple camera. Not this is what you can do as in you can take these photographs. Of course you can't. They're just my photographs. They're my snaps. But, hopefully you'll see that you can do an awful lot. You can shoot pretty much anything that you find interesting, that you find fascinating, that catches your eye, and process it the way you want to process it. You can shoot HP5 and develop it in ID11 and it look rubbish. For me, to my eye, it can look absolutely awful. I hate ID11. It's a bog standard developer that will do exactly what it says on the tin. Yeah, bog standard, I think, are the two words that I would, there's just no aesthetic to it. It's very safe. It's very, they're all safe if you use them correctly in the right way. But just very porridgey, muddy, unpleasant grain structure. Process it in the right way. Get a great lens. It doesn't have to be expensive, but as good as you can, as optically as good as you can. The 50mm Japanese, the one I've just been talking about, is a great lens. The vast majority of these were shot with that, if not all of them. Hey, just a few examples. You can look at Cartier-Bresson's work. Okay, it's a rangefinder, but there's no difference. It's 35mm. That's what you can achieve. I mean, I would argue you probably can't achieve that because nobody else has achieved what he's achieved by a long way. Just pure volume of the work apart from anything else. But hey, look, he was able to afford to go and live in different countries, and he didn't have to hold down a job while he was doing it. He could just shoot his own stuff, his personal work, along with his Magnum stuff, till the cows came home. So lucky for him, that's great, but still a genius, one of the most phenomenal artists of the 20th century, in my opinion. But I'm just giving you a flavour of what you can do. You don't need anything else. You don't need flash. You can shoot really low. Shadows look great. Just work with it. Don't be scared if it's a 15th of a second. Just hold it as steady as you can. If it's a really fast moving object, then obviously you're not going to get very far, but just try and see light and appreciate light. Appreciate low light. Shadows are more interesting a lot of the time. Don't blitz them all with flash. Shade is amazing. Shadows are amazing. Low light is amazing. Just push your film a little and develop it in the right chemical that suits you. Gives you what you want to get from that negative. And that's pretty much it. I'm waffling now, but I just wanted to give you that idea of how simple it can be. Literally, you don't need to go and buy a ton of stuff, a ton of equipment. You can do that if you want. Nikon FE, any of the Nikon F cameras, fantastic platform. You can fill your boots with whatever you want with that platform. It's an incredible platform to work from. You can put motor drives on, you can put flash on, you can put tripod, you can do what you want basically. But if you want to shoot street, if you want to, this is the kind of thing that I do. I just love that uncontrived look, that feeling, the guy dribbling, on a coach, whatever it might be, just, the flick flack, the puddle shot, just, do whatever it is that, that stirs you, that interests you, that, that draws you. Everybody's interested in something. Photograph what you love. Photograph what intrigues you or interests you or delights you, or the camera can be you know, a psychoanalytical couch, or it can be a kiss. You know, it's that versatile, especially when it's 35mm. So that's it for now. This concludes the third part, and hopefully I've at least stirred the imagination, thrown a little bit of something on the fire to spark the imagination, and you'll have a few thoughts at least from all of this. And so yeah, thank you very much for stopping by, and see you for the next one. Cheers for now.